Chelsea fans, welcome back to Talking Chelsea. Welcome back to your Chelsea news. Luis Enrique speaks about Chelsea before tonight's final. We have an update regarding Christopher Nkunku's future. Chelsea have clarified why Nicolas Jackson is worth £100 million. The Chelsea board are backing their transfer strategy, and Donnarumma to Chelsea could be on the cards. Now, of course, I'll be giving my own thoughts and opinions on everything that's been reported, but more importantly, I want to know what you guys think down below in the comments.
And before we get into the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content. We're on the road to 10k by the end of 2025.
Kicking things off, the Guardian Sport have reported that Chelsea laugh at the narrative about needing older players. They won the Conference League and are back in the Champions League. They appear to have bought well this summer and are pleased with the recruitment team of Winstanley, Stewart, Jewell and Shields. Now, I find this very interesting because us Chelsea fans are super critical of everything that these guys do, and rightfully so. They're spending a lot of money, there's a lot of incomings, there's a lot of outgoings, and at the start, we were like, wow, we're buying all these players. We're back. We're buying all this talent. We're going to be amazing. We just need the right manager, the right system, and we are good to go. And obviously, we've had that roller coaster of different managers. We've had this NFL draft system of players coming in and going, and that's slowing down a little bit now. Let's be honest. This summer window is very crucial. We felt like Maresca has settled the squad this season. Yes, we are back in the Champions League. We've won the Conference League, which is an amazing season for Maresca to come in as someone who hadn't had any Premier League experience as a coach, to gel with this team, sell them the philosophy and the tactics and the system, and the players have bought into it, and they're now running through walls for this guy. And we're now in the final of the Club World Cup, which is later tonight. We're going to speak about that in just a minute. I am so excited for tonight's game, and I honestly feel like Chelsea can take this trophy. It's going to be a tough game, but we'll get into that. So I feel like the board are laughing because at the start they said this is their plan, and we all went, what are you doing? This is not American sport. This isn't the NFL. You can't treat it that way. But as time is going on and the team are performing better and better on the pitch, it looks like they were right from the get-go. Now, that's not to say that we were completely wrong or they completely right. There is still some grey areas. We have a lot of players we're needing to offload this summer. We can't deny that. It's in double figures. Double figures of players that we need to sell. This summer window has been very pivotal, and we have bought in the right areas, key improvements. And to be honest, the recruitment has been hit and miss across the board. Let's be fair. It's been hit and miss across the board. You've got the likes of Mudryk, yes, the whole PED stuff, we didn't see that coming, but I'd say he's pretty much a miss in terms of we want him to do well, of course we do, but he just hasn't performed well for the money that was spent. And the whole loophole in contracts, we're probably not going to pay a big chunk of his contract or money owed to Shakhtar because of recent events. But then you look at players like João Pedro, who's come in and hit the ground running already. Very early to tell, but just from the first game, full game him playing, you go, wow, okay, cool. We can see why you've bought this player. Cole Palmer, going under the radar, people saying he was going to be useless, turned out to be the best player and one of the best players in the league, our best player by far. Caicedo with a price tag, Fernandes with a price tag, and now they're so pivotal into how Chelsea pay, and they're thriving under Enzo Maresca. Cucurella, I'll be the first to hold my hand up to say that I just really didn't like him, but he's turned it around. He's one of the best left backs in the world. This guy's also very pivotal in terms of how we play. So overall, it's starting to turn into their favour. So I'm not surprised that they're sitting there saying or laughing at the narrative that they need older players. Now, I will caveat that by saying we do need some experience. I feel like experience is very valuable within a young squad. We have one of the youngest squads in Europe right now. I think it's still the youngest squad in the Premier League. We do need some experience at some point, and the experience we're looking at are the players that have been with us for a few seasons, which are Enzo Fernandez, Caicedo, Robert Sanchez technically because of his age, right? Tosin because of his age. But we got rid of players like Thiago Silva, who was so integral to that Chelsea dressing room and the experience that the youngsters can learn off of him. So I understand their position of wanting to laugh at people saying that they need experience because they're seeing success on the pitch. But the flip side to that is when things go wrong, yes, with this squad of players have been together and they're starting to gel in terms of chemistry and fighting for each other. Reece James is also someone to look at for experience, but he's still a very young player. He's just been there a long time and gone through a lot. I feel like we do have a nice balance, but having some injection of experience here and there can just accelerate their project, at least in my opinion. So I'm not surprised that they're laughing at it because they're seeing success on the pitch, but when it goes wrong, it's the first thing to get thrown back in their face if we need experience. You bought a bunch of kids. They're inconsistent. They've not been through these types of things. So how can you expect them to get over them? But I find that very interesting because from us fans' perspective, it's been a roller coaster. Happy with the owners coming in and spending money because it's what we used to under Abramovich. Selling a lot of Deadwood. They've done very well on the sale so far. And then we were kind of like, why are you buying all these players that just aren't worth the money? We're overpaying for players, Badiashile and Disasi, etc. giving Sterling a contract of like 300 grand a week. Like, it was just kind of like, well, what's going on here? You know, I always found it strange that Sterling was the first marquee signing. I'm like, really? It was a bit left field. No pun intended, but it was a bit left field, right? So we were kind of going through this back and forth of we need experience, we're screaming out for it, we're going through a tough time on the pitch. And then we overcome that because the players that we've got have been together longer, they're starting to buy into the system, they're playing the system better. Maresca has embedded himself into that system. And now we're playing very well and we're getting better and better every game. So like now, for a lot of us fans, we're kind of going, do you know what? Maybe they were right. Maybe they looked absolutely crazy when they said it all these years ago. But now we can actually see the foundations that we've built and we're building on them slowly. And we're starting to see the results a bit quicker now. We're now becoming a very strong side that people don't like facing. And if that continues, then, hey, hats off to them. Fair play. They were right from the start. But I just wanted to get your guys' opinions on the ownership, on their recruitment. The big question mark for a lot of Chelsea fans is why are they backing Robert Sanchez still? I know that he's improved, and we've mentioned this a lot of times, but why are they still backing him as much as they are? It makes no sense when there are other goalkeepers available. And even in our roster, we sold Petrovic for 25 million. There's a big debate there whether he's better than Sanchez or not. I personally think he is, especially after last season. But overall, I think these guys are right to be laughing because they're seeing success in what they're doing. But I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comments. Do you agree with the sentiment of the board that they're right now? They've done everything right. They've had to suffer and be berated by all of this backlash and fan abuse for a while, and rightly so. I'm not disputing that. Rightly so, when we've been unhappy. But because of the results they're seeing on the pitch, are they now laughing on the other side, being like, "Well, we told you," and now you're starting to see potentially what's going to happen and what's going to continue to happen as the years go on? Or do you just think that they're absolutely naive and we need some experience in the squad, regardless of how well we're doing currently or have been in the last sort of season or so? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. Luis Enrique was speaking about Chelsea ahead of tonight's final, and this is what he said. He said, Chelsea is a team similar to us. It will be a tight match against a very physically strong team. He then goes on to say that Chelsea is a complete team and it won't be easy. He finishes by saying, I really like Enzo Maresca and the way his team plays. They are very technical with good individuals, and when they have to defend, they do it with a press. They are similar to us. Now look, there are lots of sides to this. The first thing that comes to mind is mind games. PSG are currently the best team in the world, no dispute. They are battering teams left, right and centre. To sweep Madrid away 4-0, to win a Champions League final 5-0. It's wild. They are currently the best team in the world. Enrique's done an unbelievable job going into PSG with them young players with a mix of experience, like players like Marquinhos, etc., and get them performing to this level. It's unbelievable. And they are still on track. If they win tonight and they win the Super Cup, they've won every possible trophy that they can win in a whole season or a calendar year or however you want to frame it. Every single trophy. Chelsea are in a very good position here to stop something, and it would be unbelievably incredible if we can do that. And I do feel, as we're getting close to this final, I feel a lot more confident. Now, of course, anything can happen in a game of football. The ball's not even been kicked, but I feel very confident. Having all the rival fans tell us that we're going to get battered, we're going to get destroyed, we're going to get swept away. I just don't see it happening as people are forecasting it, because they don't watch Chelsea like we do. And we've seen our team get better and better. We've seen how we've grown into this competition. You've seen how we fight and play for Enzo Maresca. And Maresca has been tweaking the system through this tournament, and we've been performing even better. So it's going to be an incredibly tough game for sure. It's not easy. It could either go one or two ways, where we sit back and try and get a 1-0 win and hit them on the break, or it's a basketball score and the final score is just kind of whoever has the best attack. We never know, but we will find out later on tonight, and I'm so excited. But I also think there's an element of truth to what Enrique is saying here, in terms that we are very similar to them, because I think that we are. I think a lot of people overlook this. Obviously, we're not performing at their level, right? That is the dream, to get to the level and standards that PSG are at right now, where everyone fears them. Everyone's like, yeah, we don't want to play PSG, man. They're just blowing teams away left, right and centre. Small, big, medium, whatever. If there's a trophy, they're going for it. And I respect that. But I do see the similarities in terms of what Maresca's building here and how the way PSG are currently playing. And the reason being is Maresca has said this multiple times throughout this season, in and around sort of, October, December time. There was a lot of mentions of, we look at clubs like PSG and that's what we want to be trying to do in terms of the style of play. And obviously, we don't have the same calibre of players. We've got different players, right? But this isn't the first time that you can see the comparisons between PSG and Chelsea. Pressing as a team, defending as a unit, attacking as a unit, being very quick on the transition if need be, like being clinical in the in your final third, having high and wide wingers that are goal-scoring wingers. a fluid front four. Like, you can go on, like, you can see the similarities. So I think there is an element of truth to this, as well as mind games, right? There's obviously mind games to this. We literally got a final tonight. So I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below regarding what Luis Enrique has said about Chelsea. Do you agree with what he's saying? I think we are, very, very similar. Not to their level in terms of performance right now, but well on our way to, if we keep going the way we are. But we are physical. We do press. We are... I see us as a complete team. I think the squad is extremely balanced right now. We're injecting these new players into key areas. I think it just only strengthens us. And that's just my opinion. But I'd love to know your thoughts down below regarding Luis Enrique. Do you think it's all just mind games and there's no truth to it? Do you see that there is some truth to it? Would you say that Chelsea have comparisons to PSG? Obviously not to their performance currently, but in terms of the way the team's set up and how we play. Would love to know your thoughts and opinions down below. And also let me know what you think is going to happen in tonight's final. The Guardian Sport have reported that AC Milan are interested in Nicolas Jackson, but are unlikely to be able to afford the striker. And Fabrizio Romano has reported when Chelsea asked for Ekitike, the price was €100 million. Chelsea's position is, if you ask for these figures for these strikers, we'll ask for the same for ours. Chelsea will keep the market open for Jackson in the Premier League. I find this very interesting. Now, we know that AC Milan are very interested in Nicolas Jackson, along with a lot of other Italian clubs, Juventus, Napoli, etc. The list goes on. They want him, and I mentioned this in the previous video when, the AC Milan links came out quite strong. The Serie A just don't generate money. They haven't got the bag like that. And that's why they try and sell high and buy low, because they just don't generate enough revenue and income as the Premier League. The Premier League is far, far ahead of everyone else in terms of the money that we generate. And that's why players want to come to the Premier League, because they earn the most. The agents get the biggest fees. We get the biggest TV rights. The clubs earn the most money. It makes a lot of sense, right? And also, it's one of the best league, if not the best league in the world in terms of footballing ability, right? So it doesn't surprise me that AC Milan can't afford him. And when I first said about, Chelsea valuing Jackson at 100 million, I spoke to you guys in the comments, and actually, I was a bit naive. Obviously, they're doing this as a deterrent, and they're basically saying, look, he's not untouchable, he's for sale, but he's 100 mil. We see him as 100 mil. And that just puts off a lot of clubs to just not even bother. Or it means when clubs do come in, they go, I value him at 100 mil. Do you reckon they get away with 70? And Chelsea go, all right, sweet. That's like more than double what we paid for him. You take him, buy. So they're basically trying to raise that profile and raise that figure of transfer fee as much as possible. So it makes a lot of sense. And then when you hear this from Fabrizio saying that, if Frankfurt are asking for 100 million euros for Ekitike, then we're going to ask for 100 million for Nicolas Jackson. Now, whether that's because they rate Jackson and Ekitike as a similar type of forward in terms of sort of ability, skill set, which I doubt, or it's just the pure audacity of being like 100 million euros for a 22-year-old. Like, what are you smoking? He had a good season, 22 goals, 12 assists in 48 games. I always say that. I think he's a fantastic footballer and has a lot of potential. And Jackson has not had a season like that. It's very, very, very different. But I kind of respect Chelsea being like, all right, cool, 100 mils, you can have him. So if a club does come in at sort of 60, 70 million, they'll be like, do you know what? Yeah, it looks like a really good deal because we valued him at 100 mil. But we're actually getting the bag because we only paid 32 for Jackson in the first place. And he's not untouchable. We are willing to listen to offers. But it's just nice to get confirmation. And it's also interesting to see how Chelsea are thinking. I see it as like playground stuff. It's like, if you're doing this, we'll do that too. And I totally get it. It's business. You don't want to undercut yourself. And like I said, with Italian clubs being linked, and Italian clubs wanting Nicolas Jackson but not having the dough, we kind of saw that. Coming. That isn't going to happen. Now, I did mention a possibility, a world, an alternate universe where, Jackson goes one way, Mike Maignan comes to the other. I would love to see it. It would be incredible, considering we've already had talks over Mike Maignan and we squabbled over a few £1 million. I thought that could be quite an interesting thing where, we can basically fund part of the Jackson deal by buying Mike Maignan for a certain fee. They can then use that money plus what they were going to give us for Jackson, and then they could afford it. But realistically, I just don't see that happening, because Milan will not want to pay anywhere near the £43 million valuation that Jackson had on his head. And now with Chelsea raising it to 100 M's, they're going to be like, well, we want at least 60, 70 million to even entertain the conversation. So I don't think that's going to happen. However, I believe with Premier League clubs that are still very interested in hovering around Nicolas Jackson. Jackson has come out and said that he's willing to fight for his place. He understands that in an athlete's life, you go through highs and lows. I respect that. I totally get that. A lot of Chelsea fans want to see you gone, my man. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. We've got João Pedro and Delap. Chelsea, we reported this before, that Chelsea see that they want to keep Jackson and Delap as 9s and use João Pedro across the attacking line, right? And that gives us a lot of versatility. I think it'd just be very interesting to see what happens with Nicolas Jackson's future in this summer window. I can see Chelsea keeping him and a strong possibility of keeping him and using him next season. But he won't have as a vital sort of part to play in Chelsea's season, considering we have Delap and João Pedro, who are already performing at a higher level than Jackson, in my opinion. But there is a big but not as big chance that he leaves this summer if the right offer comes in. But my guess will be that he goes to another Premier League club, someone like Arsenal if they look to offload Isak. I don't know, anyone else that's got money really. Arsenal, I heard that you've bought Noni Madueke, right? Well, to unlock Madueke, you need Jackson. So do you want Jackson too? Because I'm sure that we can strike a deal with you. You like to take the players that we don't want. Potentially that could happen. But there's also been some very loose reports that Arsenal have been inquiring about Nicolas Jackson, which would be hilarious. It would be hilarious if Arsenal bought Jackson and Madueke off us, leaving Gyökeres and Rodrigo, the two main top priority targets they've been linked with heavily all summer, available. And Chelsea then have all this money coming in. What would happen? But yeah, I just want to get your thoughts and opinions down below. Do you think Chelsea being smart by saying that he's worth 100 mil, when obviously don't ever think he's going to be worth that, but it means that they can take a higher transfer fee for him? Do you feel like Jackson's going to stay at Chelsea for the next season but have a less integral part to play in the squad? Or do you feel that Jackson will be sold later on in the transfer window? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comments. Plettigol have reported that Bayern are still monitoring Christopher Nkunku's situation and waiting for market opportunities. Nothing advanced, no offers, nothing has changed, depends on incomings and outgoings. And L'Equipe have reported that Maresca forced on more than one occasion Nkunku to feature as a defensive midfielder during training sessions, perhaps as a way of testing his strength of character. Now, I find this very interesting. The reason I report it back to back is because it's just about Christopher Nkunku in general, and there's two sides of this. I've been very vocal saying, look, I like Nkunku as a player. When we signed him, he was one of my favourite players in Europe at the time. I was like, oh my God, we've got an absolute gem. We've gone over the roller coaster of Nkunku's Chelsea career, right? We've done this many times, so I'm not going to go over it again. But I still like Nkunku. I want to see him do well in a Chelsea shirt. Bayern Munich were interested in January. We outpriced them with January tax. They said, no, thank you. We're not paying 80 million euros. Bye. And now they're still interested. They're hovering around. They're still sniffing around Nkunku going, ooh, he looks like he's on his way out. Based on the performances he was putting in from January to the end of the season, it looked very much so that Nkunku wanted to leave. And the one thing that's kind of changed my mind, or swaying my mind, is the way that he's performing for this team in the Club World Cup. He looks like a rejuvenated player. He looks like a revived player under Maresca, whereas comparatively, he looked like he didn't even want to be there. He had no interest. He was like, yeah, is this game done? Can I go home? Get me on the first flight out of it. But like I said, recently he looks like he's fighting for the team. You can see the passion and the pressing. We're starting to see him press after a couple of years. What's this all about? And he is a good player. Technically, he is a good player. And I feel like he's grown into this competition with Chelsea. And now it makes a lot of sense when we had the divide of the squad of who's staying at Cobham and who's being taken in the Club World Cup squad. A lot of us went, why is Nkunku going? But now it makes a lot of sense. Maresca has utilised him as that rotation player as and when needed. And he's performed to a good level. I'm not saying he's been amazing, but a lot better than what he's been throughout the season for Maresca. There is a night and day difference. So I'm sitting on the fence here really going, is Nkunku going to stay at Chelsea, or are we going to offload him later in the summer window? Because if Nkunku's putting in shifts like this and he does rekindle his form and he wants to be part of Maresca's system next year, I'd be happy to keep him if he's performing like this as a standard and it's only going to get better and it's consistent. On the other hand, if Bayern Munich come in for 60, 70 million euros, see you later, because Chelsea can make their money back and they'll make a bit of profit, right? And for a player that had long-term injuries, who we must admit hasn't had many injuries since that, which is another really under-the-radar thing with, Pedro Neto being an injury-prone player when we bought him. He's playing a lot of consistent minutes. Reece James being fit for the longest period in the last, 3 or 4 years. Nkunku hadn't had a big injury. He might have had the odd one here and there, but nowhere near as long as that, and he's been a lot more available for Enzo Maresca. So our medical team's doing well. Maresca's doing well with the man management in terms of the minutes. I'd be happy to keep Nkunku. I'd be happy to sell him if the money's right. But I feel like there is also an argument that Nkunku is performing this way to try and raise his profile because he's in the shop window and it will attract more interest and it gives him more options leaving after this tournament. But at the same time, from a human perspective, like professional football, I mean, I'm obviously not a professional footballer. This is my assumption. I would assume that if you go on and win the Club World Cup, and it's a big if because we've got a massive challenge ahead of us tonight, would you want to leave the world champions? Or would you want to stay and fight for your position because you're like, I'm with the world champions? So there's also that element to it as well. Maybe it's the excitement of the tournament. I don't know. Maybe it's just me getting sucked into the Club World Cup and seeing how well we've been playing across the board. But hey, and regarding Maresca forcing him to play defensive midfielder in training sessions, it's just very interesting to me. It's very interesting to me, and maybe it is testing his strength of character. And, you know, Maresca loves these Swiss Army knife players. Now, obviously, I don't think we'll ever see Nkunku playing as a DM in-game, right? I just don't see. If that happens, then he major head loss. But I think it's good to, you know, show different sides of the game, test on different sides of the game, because this is ultimately going to improve his pressing and defending side of his game when we are playing him on that left wing as a number 10, you know, on the right, wherever he's being utilised, as a false 9, whatever it may be, whatever he's required to do. And I always respect Nkunku for the fact that he plays what position the manager gives him, right? Whether or not he does it to a high standard or not is a different story, but recently he has been. And I feel like it's very interesting. Maresca's like, no, you're playing DM, mate. We're improving your defending. We're going to get you pressing. We're going to get you tackling more. And we're going to essentially show you a different side of the game. Because when you're not doing this work from your position, this is what your DM has to then pick up twice the amount of. Because they've got to do your work plus theirs. So I really like that. I really, really like that. Mourinho had similar things within training that come out over the years of trying to get players to play in different positions to understand what it takes to do that role plus theirs. And it just kind of instills this whole, I can't be lazy. We have to fight for the team. I have to put in like 110 because if I don't, my teammates have to pick up the slack. So again, I find this very interesting, but I'd love to know your thoughts down below regarding Nkunku as a whole. Do you think he's been playing a lot better in the Club World Cup? Do Chelsea keep him for next season? Do you see a vital part for him to play across the season? Or do Chelsea just look to offload him for the highest price possible, potentially Bayern, after the Club World Cup? And because he's played well, his transfer fee will go higher. L'Equipe have reported that Chelsea are interested in signing PSG's Donnarumma. They go on to say that Chelsea are very interested in Donnarumma. The Italian keeper is highly appealing to the Blues, but his future remains very uncertain. The final decision will be made after the Club World Cup. They also explain that his future will be decided after the Club World Cup, but his contract extension is increasingly uncertain. Now, I find this very interesting for many, many reasons. Would I take Donnarumma? 100%. He is one of the best, if not the best goalkeeper in the world currently. This guy is incredible. Cool, calm, collected on the ball. Can play out from the back. Shot stopping is second to none. No mistakes leading to goal. Or if he has, they're very, very few. A lot better than what we currently have. Very demanding in the box. His stature is unbelievable. He's so tall. He can reach the corners. Like, this guy is an incredible keeper. Would I take him at Chelsea? 1000% yes. Do I think there's any element of truth to this? Probably about 5%. That's probably a bit too low. Let's say 15% truth to it. Because yes, I feel like Chelsea are linked with everyone and we have a scouting network that is always constantly linking people. And the goalkeeping position is a position we need to address at some point this summer window. The only problem I have with this is the mind games. It's the eve of the final or the day of the final. I can't remember if this has been stretched out over 24 hours. So like day before into today, which is the day of the final. That you're now talking about Donnarumma being a Chelsea player or like Chelsea being interested in him. Like, it makes no sense. It could have waited to do this after the final. I don't know why it's being done the day of or the eve of the final or whatever it may be. I find that a bit strange. Is this mind games to unsettle the camps, to get them talking? I personally think it's not, in terms of like it won't have its effect of settling the camps. But it's very interesting to talk about. Donnarumma to Chelsea, I would love to see it. Now for me, there is only one reason why Donnarumma will not be a Chelsea player. Can you guess what that may be? I don't think the transfer fee would be an issue because he's going into contract extensions. I've just looked it up. It would be his incredibly enormous wages. I don't think the transfer fee would be enough. Wouldn't be an issue because he's got 12 months left on his contract, which is why they're talking about extension. And he's basically saying, I don't really know. Let's get this tournament out of the way and then we can talk about it, right? It would be unbelievable limbs if Chelsea could secure Donnarumma. That, honestly, that'd be unbelievable. But his base salary is 250,000 euros a week, and then he gets a bonus of 100,000 euros a week, which brings it up to 349,000 euros a week and like 50 euros or whatever. I don't know what the clauses are for that bonus, but he's basically racking up over 300,000 euros a week. Chelsea will not pay that. They will not pay that. So as much as I think this is an amazing story to talk about and think something to react to, you guys, and get your genuine opinions down below. Would you take Donnarumma at Chelsea, especially over what we've got currently in Robert Sanchez? And even though Sanchez has improved, Donnarumma is he's just clear. I don't know what anyone says. Donnarumma is one of the best keepers in the world currently. Chelsea would not be paying that. And do you see a player like Donnarumma coming to a club like Chelsea if the wages weren't right? I do not see it. I think that if Donnarumma was to drop his wages and just take the base of $250,000 a week, Chelsea still wouldn't pay that because of the wage structure. They've said many times that they're willing to break the wage structure for certain players. 200,000. We offered Jadon Sancho between 180 and 200,000 a week. He turned that down, and obviously that's a big step down from what he's currently on, over 300,000 a week at United. So the money's there. We can pay it, but I just don't see Chelsea offering Donnarumma $250,000 a week. I just don't see it happening. If it happens, happy to be proved wrong. If it happens, would he then accept it? Because again, for him, that's still 100 grand a week less if he doesn't hit his bonus, which he's obviously been consistently hitting with PSG in the way they've been playing this season across all competitions. But yeah, I just, this story is interesting to talk about with you guys, but I don't understand the timing of it, and I don't think that Chelsea could ever do this because of the wages. If they're willing to pay it, great. But I don't see it happening. And would you see Donnarumma leaving the current best team in the world, not extending his contract and coming to Chelsea, who potentially could be the best team in the world in many years to come if we keep going the way that we are? It just doesn't make sense to me. But Chelsea are interested. They're very interested. We're interested in a lot of players. And honestly, I wish that there was a lot more concrete to this because he's an unbelievable keeper. But I just don't see it happening, and I thought it was very interesting to react to it with you guys and get your opinions down below in the comments. So let me know your thoughts and opinions regarding Donnarumma to Chelsea. Do you think Chelsea would pay the $250,000 a week that Donnarumma is on, even though that means $100,000 less than what he's currently on without bonuses? And do you also feel that he would step down, or maybe not step down, but step sideways? Yeah, well, let's be honest, he would be stepping down to Chelsea currently because PSG are the best team in the world. Or do you see him extending his contract? Because I do. Love to know your thoughts and opinions down below regarding Donnarumma to Chelsea. Yeah, I don't see this happening. And that's all the latest Chelsea news. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on everything that's been reported down below in the comment section. I love having a conversation with you guys. And if you have watched this video all the way to the end, firstly, you're a real one. And I mean that, you're a real one. But secondly, there'll be a thumbnail appears on the screen. So if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content, make sure you click that thumbnail because you'll enjoy that video too.